Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 12 of the Locker Room Podcast, where we take a look behind the scenes of sports business. My name is Sam Benning, and today I am joined by a very special guest, Coach Michael Crotty. Coach played college basketball at Williams College in Massachusetts, where he was a NCAA Division III national champion, a two-time D3 All-American, and holds numerous Williams and NCAA accolades. He also played professional ball internationally before working as the Boston Celtics Director of Player Development from 2005 to 2008, where he won an NBA championship. He's now director of the Middlesex Magic AAU program, who have recently joined the Under Armour circuit and have held rankings in the nation's top 25 teams multiple times. Coach Crotty, thank you for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Sam. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We can get right into it. We'll go back to your college career. Just to start it off, at least, can you discuss your decision to go to Williams, and how was the recruiting process back then, and a little compared to now, at least?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Cambridge and Belmont, Mass. So, although you'd think you'd know the entire state, I didn't really grow up knowing what Williams was. I wasn't, from a long line of college grads. My family wanted the best education for my sister and myself, and to take our educational paths beyond what they had done. So when I was a good high school basketball player and a strong student. But I wanted, like all the kids I coach now, I wanted a scholarship. Yeah. And there was when I was the ball boy of the Belmont High team in the 4th and 5th grade, they won a state championship in 1993. And there was a guy named Mark Mulvey, who was an amazing player, a guard. And I idolized him, and he was great to me. He went to St. Michael's College, Division II school up in Vermont. And he was an All-American, and he played overseas. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be Mark. My sister, 5 years older than me, went to St. Michael's College. Okay. Coincidentally, not an athlete. My dad's name was Michael. I'm Michael. And then the only Division II scholarship offer I got was from St. Michael's. So I was like, this has to be it. But it was a college. Yeah, I mean, a beautiful place. Like, it's on the Colchester kind of Winooski line near Burlington. Picturesque New England school. Very good school. I had achieved academically to a point where I may be able to go to some higher ranked academic places. And I'd gotten into Phillips Exeter for a postgrad year. I was 17 when I graduated. I was in I need a little but I was a good player. So I decided to take the year to go to Exeter, and then I refocused my lens sort of on high level Division III academic schools and maybe some Ivy League schools. And for me, it really came down to Williams, Amherst, and Tufts, and I visited them in the inverse order of that. And I really liked Tufts. Amherst was nice, and then Williams was my last visit. And as anyone who's gone to college knows, sometimes you go and it's a really hard call. Sometimes you go and it happens when you're there, and this is where I want to be. And I had that moment with my family. I fell in love with everything about Williams. Amazing place, very lucky to have attended #1 liberal arts college in the country. I was challenged academically every minute, challenged on the court. They had a great basketball tradition. They had 2 Final Fours under their belt at the time. The coach that recruited me, Harry Sheehy, was an All-American there. And I felt love at first sight for me out in the mountains in Williamstown.
That is nice. And yeah, like you were saying, like, you guys were very successful. Obviously, you had the championship in 2003. You guys had one loss that year. Is that correct? That was to Amherst, actually, coincidentally.
Beat them 3 times that year, though, Sam.
Exactly.
Lost once, beat them 3 times, including the NESCAC championship and the NCAA tournament. But yes, that one was to them.
I think the most, like, a pretty impressive part of that season, though, was like practically being undefeated. I think from a basketball perspective, like, going through a whole season without losing, it's actually quite a feat. I think off of that, I just want to ask you, like, do you think it's necessary to lose? Do you think it's necessary to fail in basketball? Generally, what are your thoughts on that?
The competitor in you says no, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can win everything. I don't know if it's necessary. I think it's valuable.
Yeah.
So we had an interesting 4 years. If we talk about my class, I played with Blake Morgan, Chuck Abbott, Ben Coffin, and we have the winningest class. We were 104 wins and 16 losses in 4 years. But as you mentioned, we were 31-1 the year we won my junior year. And then our senior year, we were 30-2.
Yeah.
And we lost in the title game. So we were, inches. We lost at the buzzer.
Yeah.
We were inches away from being 31-1 back-to-back years. And so last 2 years, you're 61-3.
That's crazy.
You say 104-16, it's really impressive. 61-3 is insane. It doesn't, I've taught anyone you talk to, whatever level, like to win that consistently. But to your point, the first year we were 21-7, and that's a pretty good record. Winning 20, good, but I think we had a collective mindset that wasn't good enough, and we had a new coach. The coach that recruited us became athletic director at the school, and he couldn't do both, so he hired the coach, Dave Paulson, who was fantastic, and we had some seniors that were hanging on to the old regime. So we had an interesting year, and I started. 2 other freshmen played a lot. Some other young guys. So there was a change. It was a disjointed year, but we still got 21 wins. But we lost 7 games. And next year we lost 6 games. We were 22-6, but we made the NCAA tournament, got a win, and then lost. And that loss at Rochester, again, to your point about how important losing can be, that lessons were learned there about toughness, about togetherness, about things we needed to improve on individually and collectively to take the next step. I will never forget that loss. It seared in my brain. I can remember how loud they were, and we may have lost by 12 or 13, but it was one of those games where you weren't really in it in the second half. You cut it to 9, but it was right back to 13. They had our number that day, and they were a better team that day. So we took that with us, and we worked our tails off in the spring, and then in the summer, and we got back and got cooking in the fall, and then we started a ride where, winning was fun. It's always fun. It became expected. It was what we did every day, and there was a little bit of a job-like mentality to it. Not that we didn't enjoy it, but that senior year, to be honest, after your juniors, you're coming in, you won 22 games the year before, and then you start out 10-0, and then you drop 1, and then you win 21 games in a row, and you win a national championship, and you're not thinking about winning a national championship. You're really good. We were ranked in the top 10, 15, but it's one day at a time. It's one possession at a time. It's one half. It's one win, and next thing you know, you're cutting down nets. And come back the next year, and we lost some important guys, but technically it was only 1 starter. We really would have been 2. 1 guy was injured and wound up coming off the bench, but we lost 2 other important pieces of our culture, John Fitzgerald and Sumant Bhatt. They came off the bench as well. We were different, but we were also really good. We were a little fast. We played fast, and
you guys beat Holy Cross that year, right?
Again, you start out 10-0, and one of those is a win at Holy Cross. We got on the bus to go to Holy Cross, and I don't think we were thinking prior much about it. And then all of a sudden you're there, and you're like, okay, it's a bigger gym. We're playing a D1 game tonight. Okay. And, we went down 2-0, and then we went on an 11-0 run, and they called timeout. We got a 2, and then we got to stop a 3, a stop a 3, a stop a 3. It was 11-2. And I think everyone in the Hart Center was like, what the blank is going on here? And that was one of those games, kind of like that Rochester loss we had, where we got ahead by 9 or 10. They would cut it to 4 or 5, but we always had the answer. And Chuck, Ben, and myself had particularly strong games as seniors, and you go all the way to the national title game again. So the losing early in the career, and sometimes within a season, but I never felt like in those 2 years a loss. And again, it was Amherst was so good too. We had this great rivalry with them, and we played them 8 times the last 2 years.
Wow.
So you had a home and home every year. We split it both years.
Wow.
Junior year, they had won the league game, so they hosted the conference tournament. They were the 1 seed, we were the 2. We got to the conference tournament championship and beat them on their floor. That was massive, because then there's hosting in Division III. So they hosted a pod, we hosted one. They win Sweet 16. Now they're going to come to our gym, and they played Rochester, who we thought we might see again. They beat Rochester. We beat Hamilton, and we play them to go the Final Four our junior year. It's like, man, we keep seeing these guys. Like, we played them times. And imagine being, 28-1.
Yeah.
Who do you have to see? The one team that's beat you, your arch rival, the team you can't even stomach the idea of them beating you to go to the Final Four. And we were up 2 at half, and we had a remarkable second. We hit 11 threes in the second half. We ran them out of the gym. We beat them by 18 or 20. It might have been 17 the final, but we were in command. You get to the next year, same thing. We're 9-10-0, beat Holy Cross. We go to Amherst for the non-league game, and they beat us up. They didn't beat us. They took it to us. Then they come to our place. We win a tight one. So now we get to host the conference tournament. We beat them by 10. Now in Division I, if Duke and Carolina are in the top 5, they'll send one of them out of the region, right? So they could play at the Final Four or the championship game. They don't do that in Division III basketball. It's regional. It's bus rides. But they did it. They sent them down to Franklin and Marshall so that we wouldn't play. We were both top 5 teams all year. So we win at home. We're going back to the Final Four. I'm getting on the ladder to go to cut some net. I looked at our sports information director. Wasn't quite, the age of quick information. And I said, Franklin and Marshall was playing Amherst. Amherst got to the Elite 8. So I looked at him, I said, Franklin and Marshall or Amherst? Because we were going to play the winner at the Final Four. And he goes, Amherst. And I was like, you guys just go away. So now you go down the Final Four, but there's angst, right? It's your rival.
Yeah.
And we played maybe the best game we've ever played against collectively. It was a war. Yeah. We beat them 86-81. They were up 6 under 10 minutes to go in the second half. Like those battles were a big part of our career. And I will say the next day we lost the national title game 84-82. Nothing held us back, but we went through an emotional game that day.
Yeah.
Before, and I, in a funny anecdote, when I went to play overseas in Germany, I wound up in the same division as the best guard from Amherst.
Okay.
He's now a friend of mine, and I've become friends with a few of them, Keith Zalaski and a few others. I'm sure some of them maybe don't want to ever be my friend. We had a lot of battles, and the schools are probably more similar than they want to admit. But I was we played against Adam's team. We had a great game. I think he had a better game than me. My team won, but we had fun. And then he invited me to go watch the Super Bowl with him. Huh. I didn't speak German. It was nice to have a friend. So it was the Patriots Eagles. He's a DC area guy, and I'm a New England guy. So I'm like, the Eagles. He's got to be rooting against the Eagles. He's a Redskins fan now, a Commanders fan. And he said, no, I'm rooting for the Eagles. I said, of course you're rooting for the Eagles. We're not meant to root for the same team. And we watched the game, and the Patriots won. And we wound up staying up talking about those battles. And there was a lot of respect there. But anyway, so a couple of tangents off your question. I think losing can be really important if you take the lessons. Yeah. If you lose and say, the hell with it, like, let's go do it again, and you don't try to think about what you could do better, then you're probably gonna find those same mistakes again.
Yeah. And off of that, like, just keeping on the fact of just lessons and experience, what takeaways do you have from Williams that you still keep with you today?
I was just talking to a family prior to jumping on this podcast with you about their child's decision. And that's one of the things I love in our program with the Middlesex Magic is we'll have 30 to 40 kids a year that can go play in college, and we help each kid with the decision. And it's a unique decision to everybody. But I was just speaking to them about how your experience can follow you for the rest of your life. Takeaways from Williams. I mean, first and foremost, you have to be capable, but capable without hard work is not going to win. Yeah. And I think more about that academically for me. I had capability, but the students I was competing with were some of the best in the world. So I would liken it, Sam, to the first time you play pickup with like a college group. If you're a middle high school guy and it's fast for you, and you're like, whoa, I gotta step my game up. I needed to do that academically. I was eager for it though. Mm-hmm. And there's no hiding in the classroom there. There's small class sizes, participation, writing, reading and speaking, intelligently about what you read and having open dialogue about it. That was an amazing learning environment. And I've taken that with me, the ability to listen to people, really actively listen. A lot of people wait for their turn to speak, especially in debate or, less amicable conversation. Yeah. And I think my listening skills have come with me, my ability to understand other people's perspective and to really know that there is so many other perspectives out there outside of the one that maybe has been drilled into your brain and you don't even know it on a particular topic or item. I think what friendship means. My guys, older sister, I don't have any brothers, but those guys are that to me. My teammates, I would run in front of traffic for those guys and sacrifice and all the cliche words that are part of it. They're real. If you experience it at a high level, they're very real. And that brotherhood that we have is outside of my family, the most important thing in my life. I love those guys, and that whole experience is life-changing for me.
Yeah, that's huge. That's what it's all about. Moving on, Celtics side. You started off, exactly. There we go. World champs. You started off as an intern under Danny Ainge, if that's correct. How did you get there? How did you find that? What was your process like?
Yep. When people ask me that question, I usually respond partly charms and partly good looks, just to get them to laugh. And say that has nothing to do with it. I don't have either. My dad had coached a few of the owners of the Celtics children, and I had been at clinics with them here and there when I was home in the summer. So I had emailed one of the owners after my freshman year. I said, if there's any opportunity, he said, appreciate it. There's nothing available. I did that again after sophomore year. I did it again after junior year. And, was met with, no, we're okay. So then after senior year, I went and played overseas for a little while.
Yeah.
And, hey, I wound up landing in a division in Germany, as I mentioned. And then when I came home after that year, that same owner had reached out to me and said, hey, we actually need some help getting ready for the NBA draft. So I went in there late May, April, early May, and it was still VHS to DVD. I mean, I'm showing my age a little bit, but I was clipping film. It was time consuming. But then I'd be around and, maybe a couple of guys are in, so you rebound, and it's the summer, people are in and out. But then Pierce comes in one day and you're like, okay, there's our guy, and so I got to be around it. I listened a lot. I didn't talk a lot. I just tried to be helpful. And then in that draft, we drafted Gerald Green and Ryan Gomes. And then after the draft, it was kind of ghost town. And I still remember going into the old facility in Waltham, punching my code. It was like a hand code to get in. No one was in there like July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. I just kept going. I just kept going. And, I don't know if Danny looked to see I kept going, but I would, if there was any work to do, I would, but there really wasn't much. So I would work out. I was still considering going back to play another season over in Portugal. And then Danny called me in. He said, hey, we have a role, the director of player development. Now that role sounded pretty spiffy to me. It sounded like a high level, at 24, I don't know that I was, directing much, but at the end of the day, they needed somebody in a permanent role full-time to help shepherd the NBA's programming off the court to the coaching staff and to the players in reality. Yeah. If you remember, Ron Artest went in the stands, the Malice at the Palace, good Netflix documentary. That was a big thing for the NBA, saying we need someone in player development. So I would go to all these meetings with all the other teams. We would hear from folks about, helping them manage their money, the effects of alcohol and performance, a number of things that were off the court. And some people in my role were like me; they were basketball people, and some were not. Sometimes they had older gentlemen or women who they thought maybe folks that these guys could look up to. But for Danny, he said, I want you to go get the program and bring it back to me. We'll decide what we want to do. But other than that, I want you to run with Doc. So I was in the second row. I was more of a basketball role. At 24, I hadn't bought a house. I hadn't set up much beyond my 401k, but I became a liaison for the folks in the downtown, in the Boston office. I would drive the guys to the Read to Achieves and all the other community programs. And it was great for me because I got to know them personally that way. And our trust was built. And then, we were really bad the first year. Yeah. And then we were horrible the second year. We lost 30 games out of 31, 18 in a row. Pierce hits a step back against Milwaukee. Then we lose another 12. He was out with a stress reaction. They They brought him back. I mean, we would have set a record.
Yeah.
It was tough, and we had young team, young guys that didn't know how to win yet. And then of course, trade. Here comes Ray Allen, drafted Big Baby. Now the big trade for KG, and then we had just an amazing ride. 66 and 16 training camp in Rome and London, and beat the LA Lakers pretty soundly in the finals. I got a kid that grew up in the area rooting for the Celtics. I got, have a national championship ring, and now I got this diamond and emerald Boston Celtics ring that says Crotty on the shank. And I'm like, this is what a dream come true,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for that 08 team, obviously you were talking about, you had the struggles early. What set apart that 08 team that like influenced that championship run? What did you see in that team that wasn't part of those other teams?
The very first thing when we were in Rome, KG is more intense than advertised, scarier than advertised, more amazing than advertised. He's everything. I used to say he's awesome. That's a word that's so overused in our common vernacular. He is awesome. There's awe about him, right? When he comes into a room, the air comes out. Yeah. So they were scrimmaging, and James Posey is a name people don't talk about a lot. I was a big fan of Pose, and KG and James got into it a little bit, and James went right up to him. Everyone was kind of afraid of KG, and Posey went right to him. I would say nose to nose, but it was more like forehead to nose because James is about 6'7" and Kevin's closer to 7 feet. And Posey was like, basically, what are you going to do? Like, I'm here. I'm not afraid of you. And I just remember thinking, Paul Pierce is a tough dude. And Rondo's got toughness, and Perk is tough. And Ray is tough in his own way. He's smooth, but he's still tough. Yeah. KG is like the animal. And I'm like, now this guy's coming off the bench. This guy, he'll fight anybody in a good way. Yeah. And we played a lot of, that was like the precursor to the way the game has changed. We played a lot of times with Perk out and Posey at a pseudo 4, and he could step out, make threes, make a dribble or two. So Pose's toughness, Eddie House's chip on his shoulder, and then just everyone knowing their role. Leon Poe, tough Big Baby was coming on. So like it was the toughness that the team had and the defensive mindset first. There's a lot of talent on offense, but this team dug in on D, number 1 rated D the whole year, and I think that's what it was. But that's my first memory of it. Was Posey basically saying, no, F you right back, Kevin. And I was like, who says that to KG? Who says that to the big ticket? So that was the first thing. And I think it was a hallmark for that team.
Yeah. Like just having those scrappers, those glue guys, I think that's just so important. I mean, Coach Poyer always says it to me. Obviously not many people around the Maryland area might know this, but my high school coach back home says you need freaks to win. You need real freaks to win. And I think, obviously in a good way, but like you were saying, like, that's what you need sometimes.
You do. No doubt. And we had some of them, and if Coach Poyer watches this, let's give a shout out to Coach Poyer. And you want to talk about intensity and teaching the game and having one of the biggest hearts and one of the finest men I've ever been around, and you got to have coach you, man, Matt Poirier. He should be in the dictionary for that.
Yes, indeed. A big shout out to Coach. And on the coaching side, actually, in terms of working under Doc Rivers and the Celtics staff, like, what was that like? Recently that KG story about Doc putting up that money in the Staples Center ceiling, how much passion he put into his coaching and how he brought together teams, but all the staff across the board, including you. What was that like?
It was an honor. I mean, obviously grew up watching Doc and getting, some mentorship from him, being on his staff. He's a true player's coach. I mean, he played in the league for a long time, had success in the league. And our guys responded to him. He would know when to push, when not. More than anything, just a fine guy with a great family. We connected. He got to know my late dad. My dad was Marine. His dad was police. Just a connection. We would play some golf. Doc was just an amazing person. Not to take away from his chops as a coach, but me as a young guy, I'll never forget him waiting in what wound up being a 2 or 3 hour line at my dad's services, and people telling me, Doc's in line. They had a game and he won't come up, like he won't cut the line. And eventually, we went and got him.
Yeah.
And that's just, he's just a good man. Got a lot of great stories from his Knicks days, Pat Riley stories, playing against Jordan Bulls stories, stuff I won't forget hearing when, being down in Winter Park with him, having a dinner. It was an amazing experience. He's a great guy, and I still root for him. Tough to root for Philly,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
for Doc. I love Doc.
Low crossroads there, but yes.
Yeah.
And moving on from the Celtics, I guess, what was the driving decision for you moving on? What made you decide to leave?
Yeah, I spent 3 years in that role. We won, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, Sam. I really didn't. I knew basketball was in my blood, and I love being around it. My dad had started the Middlesex Magic in 1993. I had played for him, and it had blossomed into something bigger than 2 or 3 teams. It was up to 10 or 11 teams, and so I knew I could, if I left the Celtics, keep my hand in the game. But I wanted to. I think in my mind, I was like, well, I went to Williams, and maybe I should try to be in business. And I think that was kind of in my mind. And I also, there is a nomadic lifestyle about being in the NBA.
Yeah.
You can get lost of what day it is, what city you're in, traveling with the team. I hadn't met my wife. I wasn't settled down. I remember just thinking, I don't know if this is the world I want to be in. And I saw some examples of coaches 30 years after my age, or 20 or 15 or maybe 8, and they looked like it was 25.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if that's what I want. Like, there is a glamour and a glitz to being part of it, and then there is a toughness and a challenge that comes to it. And I believe I had that. It just didn't drive me. It wasn't exactly what I wanted. I kind of figured out it wasn't exactly what I wanted, that nor college coaching.
Yeah.
You see people bounce around. I mean, we talk about Doc Rivers. He's been in a number of cities, man.
Yeah.
But that's his life. The NBA has been his whole world, and it will be until he says he's retired. He'll coach forever. If everyone will want him. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
But that's a different life, man.
Yeah.
So I went and took a job opportunity working downtown in Boston, and I started coaching with my dad. And so that was sort of the impetus for it. And I liked it, best job I ever had in my life, I'll say. Mike Daly and Associates, a boutique staffing firm downtown, because that's where I met my wife.
Yeah.
We now have 2 little kids, and that wasn't the career path for me. I wound up, coaching with my dad. We got a guy named Pat Connaughton,
Yep.
and he, Pat changed our program a lot, and then unfortunately my dad passed pretty suddenly, in 2010, and that was a crossroads for me. I definitely was going to keep the program going. I continued to work with Mike and Daly and Associates, and about 2 years after that, it was all right. You got to get 2 feet in here somewhere.
Yeah.
And I knew where my passion was. It wasn't just basketball. It was having the ability to impact young people's lives at a really important stage in a profound way. And I saw my dad do that, and that became, his passion became my passion, and so I went all in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And obviously, now that on the topic of Middlesex Magic, it's a perfect segue, actually.
Thank you, sir.
In terms of becoming that leader of the program and getting into becoming the director, what do you think the most important skills are to have as a coach, as a leader in that program?
Yeah, I think the first is honesty and accountability. We're not perfect. We tell people that all the time, but we work really, really hard to get it right all the time, no matter who you are, whether you're Pat Connaughton, Duncan Robinson, or somebody who's maybe never going to play high school basketball. If you're in our program, we're going to treat you the right way. We're going to be very direct and honest with you. We're going to be accountable and responsible to what we tell you we're going to provide. And we really care. I mean, that, Sam, you played in our program, and, Jack Poyer played in our program. Yep. And, you play with him, that he's a scholarship player. And I think everyone was treated with the same amount of respect and dignity that everybody deserves. And I think that's why we've been able to grow. We have great coaching throughout, whether it's the top team, the second team, the third team. We don't call them B or C teams because they're not.
Yeah.
We're really good, and we're practicing together, and we're behaving like a college basketball program, or a really good high school basketball program, or a family. Yeah. That's how we want to be. And I think a lot of people think of AAU basketball as more scattershot, and they hear all the bad stories. And, there's a lot of great programs. We're not the only one. Those programs should be highlighted more, you know. And this year when we were down at Under Armour for our first time at the spring championships, you know, a writer for The Athletic was there to find a story. He didn't even have one. He watched our team and our program, and it resonated with him. And I don't know if you read that article, but CJ Moore did this amazing article. He said, I did some research on your program. I think the story is your program. And he did a deep dive, and he spoke to Pat and Duncan. He spoke to JP Estrella, our star from last year, who's committed to Tennessee. And he did a really deep dive that I think spoke to what a really great grassroots program can be, because the world only hears the bad. You see the bad stuff on the social media channels, some ref getting chased out of it. You're like, you know, there's bad out there, but there's really good too. And so that was the impetus for my move. And coaching with my dad was something I'll treasure, and every day getting to carry on his legacy and what he wanted to do and try to add layers to the foundation that he put. I count myself very lucky to be able to do that every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys obviously have, Middlesex Magic has arguably been one of the best programs in the country, just in terms of growth in your rankings across the country over the past few years. Obviously, you know, behind you, as you can see, you got a couple NBA guys, you know, and hundreds of guys across college and pro ball levels. What do you think has caused this growth just over the last few years, at least? I think there's just been a shock for the Magic culture.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, thank you, and I'm proud that you were a part of it. You know, great coaching, attention to detail, amazing players and families who are dedicated. 2023 will be our 30th year as a program, so I think the consistency of always trying to do it the right way. We've had some amazing teams over the years. My dad had amazing teams. You know, Pat Connaughton's team, 2010, 11, amazing, you know, 4 or 5 scholarship players. You know, there you go. Those 2 guys, that doesn't hurt. Right? They've had success, an NBA champion with Pat, guys going to have success at the next level. You know, and that's not just Tyler Kolek at Marquette or, you know, Dom Campbell, Cormac Ryan at Notre Dame, JP to Tennessee. I mean, it's everybody at every level being prepared to play. So college coaches know they can come and recruit our guys. And that's not all just us. That's mostly the players and the work they put in the high school programs. But then when they get to us for the 3 hours a week or 5 hours a week, we are putting forth really good individual work and team concept work. So we are trying to prepare them to be ready to play at that next level. I think that just built up. And we have sustained the test of time. A lot of AAU or grassroots clubs have come and gone. There are not many that have been around 3 decades. And, you know, obviously this last year, the move to the Under Armour circuit, you know, that gives you a little bit of national prestige. You know, the year before we still weren't on a circuit. We played a ton of, you know, sneaker circuit teams and had great success, and did wind up ranked in the top 15. That team with Tom Campbell, Will Batchelder, Brady Cummins, Josh Morissette, you know, Trent Mosquera, Josh Baldwin, Cash McClure, on and on. Brandon Mack, Keegan Sullivan. You know, I missed 1 or 2 of them. They're gonna beat me up. You know, you know, Aiden came into Mike Lock name on that team. You then reclass and come back. So, you know, we had 8, 9 scholarship players. And then again, this year we had 8 scholarship players, and the 2 guys that aren't, they could play at a scholarship level. It's just a matter of fit and how it works. You go down to team 2, 3 guys with scholarships right now, 2 guys going to play D1. So it's getting stronger and deeper. We've had 30 guys in the class of 2020 going to play in college. We were then in like the high 20s for a couple of years through COVID. And now we will be over 35 and maybe hit 40 graduating members of the class of 2023 that are going to play in college. So when someone says, I don't want to play on your B team, say, try telling me that's a B team.
I mean, I mean, even on my team, you got a guy walking on at Harvard right now, right? I mean, Greg Cooper.
Greg can fly, man. What a great human being. Yeah, he's at Harvard. Tommy O'Neill's at Harvard. Came and going. So again, we have guys at Yale, we have guys up and down the Ivy League, high academic Division 2s, 3s, and we're proud of all of them. As you said, we're actually going to be over 100 active players in college this year. So if you think about that, it means you're averaging over 25 years. So that depth is amazing. And then I think the younger generations, they look up at that and they see what's happening and they say, I want to be a part of that. But then when you go down through the organization, whether it's Chris Giordano and Bill Boyle that helped me and do a lot of training with Chris, Larry Hurley helps me as a director in the program run the entire organization, but really big throughout the middle school. And so many coaches, so many. I can't start naming them because I'll forget them out. But their dedication and care and their belief and feel for being a part of our program, that's real. And I think that's a separator, Sam, is they know what this means to me and Larry and Bill and guys that have been around forever. Yeah. And they understand my dad's mission and what that was. And they connect with it, whether they knew him or they didn't, because I think that his spirit is really alive in what we do. So I think that's been a part of it. And look, the grassroots space is always changing. Yeah. And we've remained very relevant in a number of ways, and have our own facility in Wellesley now, a 3-court facility. And we have teams playing on a number of different circuits. It's not just, this is great. It's been great for us. We won the spring championship with the juniors and the sophomores. They were combined. Both teams are 18-3 on Under Armour. Great years, immediate impact. Guys getting recruited. I think really good for the brand, and the brand's been great for us. And the guys at Under Armour are amazing. Trey, Tor, Jimmy, Pat, Matt, Rafi, all those. I mean, they're Adam. Those guys, they run a first-class shop. So being able to see that was outstanding. But we played on Hoop Group and CJXL, and we've been at a bunch of different places, and everyone does an amazing job. You just got to bring it. You got to focus on your team, what you're about, and your mission. And then we do have the platform. I handle the recruiting with the guys, and it helps them get across the finish line. And I think that's been a big driver. When you look up as a 7th grader or a 9th grader, you say, you had 35 guys going to play in college. I could be one of those guys, and you could, and I think that's a big part. We love that part. It's a fun end. It's not the end. It's really the beginning. Yeah. But for the mission with us, it's a mission accomplished moment when they get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking on the topic of culture, I've read about a little tradition of yours. Do you still call Pat Connaughton before his games? Is that
he called me or I call him? Yeah. And we actually it may even be more frequent than that. Pat's he's like a younger brother to me. We're super close. But yeah, that was something that my dad and he started. My dad would call him before the St. Prep games, and this coach may become a little word of advice. And Pat told me that his senior year, or going into his senior year, I guess, and so we started his junior year when right after my dad had passed. And so we did that. And then we had this amazing year. And we had one of the parents had like a pullover made, and Pat wore my dad's, which was just, wow. There was something kind of neat about it. I have a great picture of him, and he had a great connection with my dad. And so we started ours, and we took that through senior year at the prep, and then Notre Dame. Portland was the toughest because there was 3-hour time difference. Now Milwaukee. And so we do, we and I work with him on his foundation, and he's an amazing guy. He's an amazing athlete, but he's an amazing guy. And, he came out to Chicago this summer and sat on our bench. And I mean, imagine those guys that feel, here comes Matt, the best player we've had, and our NBA champ coming to get back his time. Tyler Kolek came, another one of our best guys, as a person, right? As a player too, but I mean, as a guy, as a human look So yeah, that tradition holds true, even though he's on the shelf with that little calf injury. We're still look forward to him making his season debut here soon enough for the Bucks.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just think that speaks a lot towards the, like you were saying, the familial culture that you're building with the program, these long-term relationships. Obviously I can still reach out to you. I'm lucky to still have you as a contact, as all of our other coaches and players. You're building something that's long-term. I think that's a huge part of the program. It makes me proud. I know it makes you proud.
Yeah, no, it does. And I appreciate you saying that, Sam. And honestly, I mean, that's the thing. You weren't with us for 15 years, but your time there was meaningful to us because of what you brought. And it makes me really happy to hear you say it's meaningful to you. And I think that is the thing. It's not just the Pats and the Duncans and the Koleks, right? It's everybody. And that's real. Another Situate, although he wasn't a sailor, he was a BC High guy, but Michael Corcoran, Mike's one of my best friends. I talk to him all the time. I mean, just got engaged, and Mike's come back with Connor Mahoney to coach in our program. And that's another thing, the amount of alums that we have coaching.
Yeah.
We have 3 seniors right now coaching in the fall now. And a couple of parents said, hey, I realized this high school guy said, give him 1 practice and tell me if you have an issue. Because I wouldn't let somebody who was not capable.
Yeah.
You got Hakeem Doffness, Bickford, Rinaldi, these guys, these are mature guys that feel about the program. And they're giving an amazing, they're coaching 5th and 6th graders, and these parents and these kids are loving it. So, that makes me feel happy, makes me, and I know my dad would be happy about that. And
I'm sure
it's a big part of it.
Yeah. On the side of on Duncan Robinson, we can move also to the other NBA guy.
Sure. Yeah.
Specifically for him, you met him a little late in his process in terms of college recruiting. Obviously, he was, it was the end of his senior year at Governors. I think he joined the program. Is that right?
That's right. He so this is an interesting story. So a kid by the name of Chris Braley, is from Maine. Chris was just talking about this too. Strong, athletic wing. He comes to our program because his main team didn't really have, a squad that was going to be what he needed. He tells me about a guard named Harry Rafferty. I talked to Harry for like 30 minutes while I was at Notre Dame getting ready to watch Pat. Harry's amazing. I'm like, I got my point guard, this kid, tall, he's great. He said, Coach, one more thing. This guy named Duncan Robinson, I'm going to bring him to the tryouts. He's an amazing shooter. He's never played AAU. I said, sounds great. Comes to the tryout, and I was like, who is this? So Duncan, his only year of AAU was with the Magic, with Braley, with Harry Rafferty, with Peter Miller, went to Princeton, Chris Lee, Nikki Paliuka, Matt Edgerly. We had another amazing group. But yeah, Duncan's story's, been told a lot. He likes to say he was the best player on any team he was on. And it's probably true. Braley was probably our best player. Duncan could be the best player. He just needed that growth. And to see what he's done and, starting in the NBA finals against LeBron James, setting so many Miami Heat 3-point shooting records, and then becoming the highest paid undrafted player in the history of the league. I mean, that's a testament to work. And, he's special. Played a little golf with him and Patrick and had a couple workouts with them this summer, and stay super close with Duncan too. We're going to go down to Miami, and the Bucks are going there to play on a Thursday and a Saturday with a day off in between too. Wow. So my wife and I are going to go down and just get to see them play. I was at the first game they ever played in together. I went down to Miami for it again with my wife and our oldest Michael when he was a baby, and got to go on the court with him before. That was a special moment because it was Duncan's first time playing an NBA game against Pat. Pat had already been there. So very cool,
Yeah, that is awesome. And off of that, what do you see as the future for Middlesex? Any goals, what do you see in the future?
We never want to be stagnant, right? So, we want to continue to grow in ways that make sense. We're doing with Chris Giordano, his training, his gold standard training. Chris and I coach together. We're looking to really do more individual group clinic style, continue to do it more with our camps in the summer. There could be some consulting pieces to the business as it pertains to helping people get to the next level. And then just trying to continue to find pockets where we can help more kids, whether that's geographically or what have you. But we love where we are. We love who we are and the coaches and the players and the families. But we're always looking for what that next thing could be that aligns with, the values of the program. So stay tuned, Sammy.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And generally, just a couple more things. As a leader, as a director of the program, obviously you've got to make a lot of big decisions. Either on the sports side or the business side, what drives you when you come to these big decisions, when you come to these crossroads, when you're looking towards the future of the program? What beliefs do you hold? What principles?
Actually, you think back to my dad a lot and my mom too. You think back to how you were raised. Like that's kind of like what matters. Like, doing the right thing. Yeah, doing the right thing for the players. Like our business is a basketball program, so it's about the participants. And my college coach, I've read books on. He used to talk about servant leadership, right? You want to serve the people that that are asking for your help and the people that need to be guided. So I try to think about some of those values, and you think about having a growth mindset and not being fixed in things, because we touched on that a little bit earlier, but that's what comes to mind. I still think back. It'll be almost 13 years since my dad passed. I'll think, what would he say?
Yeah.
And most of the time I can hear his voice, which is pretty cool. On the few occasions when you can't, you talk to other people in your circle to try to make the best decision for the program first. But I think always being accountable, always being honest, having integrity, and being genuine about what you're doing. Those things, without those, I'm not me, we're not us. Yeah. And we would change. Yeah. So I think those are the keys. And I don't know that I think about them. You made me think about that on the spot, which is a good question. But when you think about it, that's what it is. Hopefully you just do it sort of intrinsically, but those are the things.
Yeah, I know it's reflected in you and the program. So that is a great thing. Last thing, we got our Maryland Minute. We'll do our speed round of questions now. Just a couple things. Let me know when you're ready. You good?
I'm ready.
All right. 2s or 3s?
3s.
Layups or free throws?
Free throws.
Best player you've played with?
Ben Coffin.
Best player you've coached?
Pat Connaughton.
What would you do if you weren't in basketball?
I would recreate the game of basketball. No, that's a great question. I have no idea. Probably be a team.
Fair. Who is the NBA GOAT?
Oh, people are going to kill me for this. Are you ready?
All right.
For my dad, I'll say Bill Russell, but we understand that's a Celtic 11 championships thing. I think it's LeBron James.
Okay.
But also, I get that it's Mike. And I've done this with all my players. I get that it's him. But 20 years of 27 and change, 7 and change. I don't know what to do. He's incredible.
Yes. Glad.
Okay. Mike Lockman, it's a tie. Okay. big guy.
That is all we have for speed round. Coach, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you very much for joining us and giving, some great insight into your world. Obviously we wish you all the best with the program and everything going forward. For all the listeners, follow us on Instagram at SBS_UMD to stay up to date on the latest Locker Room podcast, guests, and news, and for Sports Business Society updates. Coach, thank you again. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Take care.